Okay, we see lots of people getting on. We see some people, hey, lots of people we know. Hi, everybody. It's usually better to see you all in person, but heck.
It's the next best thing.
It's the next best thing. It's all we got going for us. We can't. Oh. We'll just wait, everybody, maybe another minute or two, just as everybody's logging on.
So when will they decide? Have they talked about the next wave at all?
Yeah, I believe I'm talking to Congresswoman Shalala, and I have another call with her at 2:30 today. They will hopefully by the end of next week have changed whatever they need to change in PPP, get the additional money back. They're working on, I guess I can update everybody if we want to start. How about if I update all the people on the call? Rather than, how about if I do that? Okay, all right. Rachel, do you think we're ready? Got enough folks to start?
Yeah, we can go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so good to see so many familiar names, some of our mom and pop applicants and recipients, some of our Greener Core Way businesses. We're so happy to be able to be meeting with you, even though it's virtual. Just to go over some ground rules for how this is going to work. We have two speakers, Victoria from the Small Business Administration and Ray from the Small Business Development Center at FIU. Victoria is going to go through her presentation, and then Ray is going to talk about some of the things that the SBDC can help you all with, and then we'll open it up for questions. Please hold your questions until the end. You can type them in the chat, or if you see the bottom of your screen, it says Q&A. You can type them there. If you write in a question, we will unmute you so you can talk to the panelists or to the commissioner directly, and then we'll unmute you once the question's been answered. And then we'll also just be writing different links and phone numbers that are brought up in the chat so you all can see it. And we are recording this, so it will be on our YouTube after this, probably later this afternoon. So, Commissioner?
All right. Hi, everybody. Sorry we're not together, but we're together. And I really want to thank you for taking some time out. We have a great combination of people. Victoria from the SBA, and then Ray from FIU's SBDC. And for anyone that hasn't worked with this group out at FIU, they are almost like our Sherpas through this process for small businesses. So it's a great opportunity to hear from the SBA what programs are available to small business owners, including sole proprietorships and people that are self-employed, and talk through some of the questions that you may have. I realize that this process has not been smooth. We received a ton of aid, $250 billion from Congress about 2 weeks ago, and almost all of that has been distributed. I, along with many other commissioners, have been on the phone with our elected representatives, and in particular, in my case, Congresswoman Shalala is my congresswoman, and I talk to her on a daily basis, and she assures me that all of these small business programs will be funded, if not double what they had, triple what they had. So there is no intention on the part of the federal government for them to run out of money. They are working on the next bill, which will include the additions of all of these small business programs, perhaps some tweaks to them, right? For example, PPP requires you to be back and running by June 30th for many. A good example of hospitality businesses that might have a hard time achieving that date. Any of our businesses in our airport might have a hard time. Hotels might have a hard time. And so they're looking at flexibility on those dates. Can't promise anything, but these are the kinds of things I've fed up to her and that she's feeding up to Speaker Pelosi to do that. Other thing we're trying to make sure we get for our county is that they change the limit on what kind of local governments can get aid. Right now, in the first round of bills, they're only going to provide funding for municipalities that have more than 500,000 residents. Well, guess what? We don't have any of those in Miami-Dade County. Even Miami, which is our big town, is still only 490,000 people. So no other community, Hialeah, Miami Beach, Coral Gables, obviously, Palmetto Bay, nobody would qualify under the current rules. In Florida, we have big counties, but little towns. So working on a number of things for that, and then also working on things to make sure that the health system doesn't collapse. And I don't mean collapse for COVID. We're very, very well positioned for COVID. The county has done a great job. More than 40% of our hospital beds are open. So if anyone unfortunately does come down with COVID, we're completely prepared for that. The bad news of 40% of our beds open means the hospitals aren't doing anything that normally provides income for them. So whether it's uninsured patients with hip replacements, or who knows, somebody that just wants cosmetic surgery, that's all cash. So all of the things that make hospitals both a service to us, but also manage to make them financially secure, has come to a complete halt. So they're working to make sure hospitals like Jackson and others get that money so that they do not actually financially collapse and go out of business just at the time when we absolutely need them to stay in business. So for us small business owners, it's a little scary because we're waiting for the next batch of billions of dollars to be released, but they are working on that big bill, and she assures me that we will not have to wait more than 2 weeks. And during those 2 weeks, if anyone hasn't applied for these programs, a really good time to put all your paperwork in order. And so I'm going to turn it over to Victoria to let us know what these programs are so we can begin compiling what we need.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, and thank you again for having me here and for this opportunity and everything you do for our small businesses. I really, truly appreciate it. So if we can go to the next slide, I just wanted to, read a little bit about, where we currently are in our process here with our disaster loan. So the SBA has processed more than 14 years worth of loans in less than 14 days. The Paycheck Protection Program is saving millions of jobs and helping America's small businesses make it through the challenging times. Now, however, as many are aware, funding is limited, and because of this, SBA and Treasury have urged Congress to appropriate additional funds for these programs. So once that is done, we will be able to once again begin the process loan applications again, start to fund the loan request once again, and continue to save millions of more paychecks in the nation. Now, the EIDL loan, also known as the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, is also providing much needed relief to sustain our businesses and their employees. Now, by law, the SBA will not be able to accept new applications under the disaster loan program due to the lapse in appropriations at this time. And because of this, the portal where you go in to apply has been temporarily closed. But once again, when and if we get additional funding, the portal will reopen. And just as the commissioner said, now it's a perfect opportunity to get all your paperwork in order. So once we start accepting applications again, you'll be one of the first ones there to submit. Now, on a district level, I do want to say we just suspended our webinars for yesterday and today, but we were still there in person virtually to answer any questions people may have in reference to the processes or where we are. Next week, we will continue to do our webinars. We will continue to have our virtual office hours. So again, you can, for information on this, please go to sba.gov/South Florida, and you'll have a calendar of events there. You also have the option to add yourself to our email distribution list. So as soon as we have new information, we can send that to you. But as always, I want to mention that the SBA, as well as our resource partners, just such as the SBC, we are here for our small business community, not just during times of disaster, but throughout the year. If you ever need any assistance, please reach out to any of our resource partners, such as the SBDC, our SCORE chapters. You can reach out to SBA, to our women business centers, and to our Veterans Business Opportunity Outreach Centers as well. We are here for you. So before we get started, I do want to share a little bit of information. We can go to the next slide if you'd like. On this next slide, we have information on important contact information you should jot down or take a picture of the screen. So at any point in time, if you want information about the programs that the SBA offers, please go to sba.gov/disaster. Again, if you want to know who's the closest resource partner to you, you can go to sba.gov/local-assistance. You can put your zip code in there and you'll get a list of that. If you do have questions about the EIDL loan or the EIDL advance, you would want to contact our disaster customer service office at 1-800-659-2955. Or you can email them at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Now, a note of caution, the response time is delayed. We have a small team of individuals trying to respond to emails and phone calls from across the nation, so I just ask for you to be patient. And again, if you want to get any updated information on what my office is doing for our small business community here locally, please go to sba.gov/South Florida. Now, what I wanted to share with you is that in the state of Florida is actually number 3 in the nation for the amount of loans that have been approved and funded on the Paycheck Protection Program. So approximately 52,000 loans have been reviewed and approved to date, and $12.65 billion have been allocated to the state of Florida. Who was number 1 and number 2? Texas was number 1. And California was number 2. So although we're a much smaller state, you can see that we did a wonderful job in providing these dollars to our much needed small businesses. And again, with the assistance of our wonderful commissioners and our business chambers, our resource partners, we were able to get the information out quickly and assist our small businesses in applying for it. So just wanted to share that little bit just to put everything in perspective before we move forward. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Let's start with our economic injury disaster loan. This is our EIDL loan. Now, our EIDL loan is basically a loan that you can utilize funding for things such as fixed debts, payroll accounts, accounts payable, or basically any expense that you have that is business related. Now, for business owners, you can be approved for up to $2 million. This is a traditional loan in the form that you do have to pay it back. The interest rate is 3.75% for small businesses and 2.75% for private nonprofits. The terms to repay is up to 30 years. Now, if you're going to be receiving loans that are over $25,000, they do require collateral if it's above $25,000. And just an example of what collateral can mean would be either business interest or real estate. The good thing about this program is that they recently included the loan advance of up to $10,000. Now, this is calculated at $1,000 per employee. Originally, when this program came out, that was not included, but they did add that. And the reason I say this is a good thing, the loan advance does not have to be paid. Now, the deadline to apply is December 18th. Of course, right now, the applications are on hold. The receipt of the applications are on hold. We're still processing the ones we have in the pipeline. But again, if we do get additional appropriations from Congress, the portal will be reopened. And when I say portal, I mean you would need to go to sba.gov/disaster, and that will take you to the portal to apply. Next, please. Let's talk a little bit about eligible and non-eligible entities. So an eligible entity is basically a small business that has 500 employees or less. You're either a 1099 employee can apply, your sole proprietors can apply, most private nonprofits can apply, faith-based organizations can also apply, and agriculture cooperatives. Non-eligible entities are agriculture enterprises, gambling organizations, racetracks, casinos, real estate developers would be non-eligible entities. Now, let's talk a little bit on the next slide about private nonprofit organizations. What are those? Well, an eligible private nonprofit organization is a non-governmental agency or entity that currently has one of the two following. Either an effective ruling letter that states that the U.S. IRS service granting them exemption tax exemption under sections 501C, D, or E of the IRS Code of 1954. Or you can also have satisfactory evidence from the state that the non-revenue producing organization or entity is a nonprofit one organized or doing business under state law. If you have one of those two rulings, then you are considered a private nonprofit and you do qualify for the EIDL loan. Next. So a few things, in case you didn't know, you can absolutely have a SBA disaster loan from a previous disaster, such as a hurricane. Even if you're still making payments on that, you can still apply for the EIDL loan. The only thing is that both loans cannot be consolidated. Business owners can apply for EIDL and the Paycheck protection at the same time. There's no problem there. And if you are denied for the EIDL loan, you will be given up to 6 months in which to provide new information and submit a written request for a reconsideration. Next slide, how to apply. You go to sba.gov/disaster. You can also apply by phone or by email, but those are much more lengthier. I would suggest once our portal is open, go straight to the portal. If you do have any questions in reference to your EIDL application, you can call the 1-800 number 659-2955, or you can email our disaster customer service team at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Next, we've spoken already about our wonderful resource partners. Just wanted to give you a quick list of them. As we mentioned, SBDC, they are our small business development centers, SCORE chapters. We have women business centers and our VBOX, which are veteran business opportunity outreach centers. You can go to sba.gov/local-assistance to see which is the centers closest to you. You can give them a call. They do offer services to assist you with any loan applications you may have. Any questions, they can actually review all of the paperwork and make sure you have everything ready to go. So once the portal opens up, you can go ahead and submit your application right away. Next. So now let's talk about the Paycheck Protection Program, also known as the PPP program. Next. Now, the Paycheck Protection Program are loans that will be given to you for up to 2 months of your average payroll cost from last year, additional 25%, up to a $10 million cap per application. Now, these loans are forgivable if you utilize the fundings in the following manner. 75% of your funds should be utilized for 8 weeks of payroll. 25% of your funds should be utilized to pay for your mortgage interest, rent, or utilities. Now, if you utilize it in that form, 100% of your loan will be forgivable. Now, you need to keep in mind, headcount and salaries must be retained. If those are reduced, the forgivable amount will also be reduced. I also want you to know that if you do need the funding for something else that are not in those categories that we just mentioned, you can utilize them. So, for example, if you need to purchase extra inventory, you can utilize the funds for that, but keep in mind that percentage that you use, you will have to pay it back at 1% interest over the next 2 years. For this particular program, there's no collateral, no personal guarantees are required. The deadline is June 30th, 2020. Obviously, funding is limited. We have, banks have stopped accepting applications, but again, when and if we get additional appropriation from Congress, the application process will open up again and new applications can be submitted. How do you apply? You go to your SBA approved bank. You can start with your own bank, ask them if they are SBA approved. Or you can also go to sba.gov/paycheck protection/find. If you click on there, you put in your zip code, you'll get a list of all the SBA approved banks and credit unions that are able to manage this program for you. Next, please. So let's take a look at this chart. How much do I apply for and what do I need to submit? Remember that the calculation is your monthly average payroll cost in 2019 multiplied by 2.5%. Whatever that outcome is your maximum loan amount that you can put on your application form. Keep in mind, employees are capped at 100,000. So if you do have an employee that makes 120,000, you can only use the 100,000 number in your calculations. And again, a maximum of $10 million can be provided per application if you qualify. So let's take a look at what do small businesses and sole proprietors, what constitute payroll costs for them? Well, salaries, wages, benefits, taxes, commissions, and tips are also included in there. And when you go to your bank, they're going to ask you for things such as your payroll reports or your income taxes. Now, every bank is a little bit different. Some may ask for additional documentation, but in general, these are the things that we know they will probably ask for. If you go to the middle section of your screen, you'll see the independent contractors and self-employed. So what constitute payroll costs for them? That would be, again, wages, commissions, income, or net earnings from self-employment. What to submit? You want to submit your 1099 miscellaneous forms and your income taxes. If you haven't done your income taxes for 2019, you can utilize the ones for 2018. That shouldn't be a problem. Now, on the far side, I did include one that says seasonal employers. You know, if you are a seasonal employer, your lender will use a 12-week period beginning either February 15th of last year or March 1st of last year, running through June 30th of last year to determine what your payroll costs were during those 12-week periods. But for this, you do need to work with your lender. So once you find a lender that you're going to work with and you are a seasonal employer, you would want to ask them questions in regards to that. So let's talk about at the bottom, what is not included? What's not included in payroll costs are payments that are made to independent contractors. Why is that? Because in this program, the independent contractors themselves can apply for the PPP program. So if you're a small business owner and you have 10 independent contractors and 2 W-2s, when you're calculating your payroll, you just want to look at what your payroll is for your 2 employees that are W-2s. The independent contractors, they would need to apply themselves for the program. Now, if you are an S Corp or a C Corp and you're an owner, you're not typically on the payroll, but you are getting money from the distributions of those corporations, from the shareholder distributions. That money that you're receiving, you cannot include it in your payroll calculation. So these are the 2 instances where, you know, those costs will not be included in payroll calculations. I just have a few more slides here. I want to give 2 quick scenarios that I often receive questions on. The first scenario is if you have no employees. So if I'm an LLC and it's just me, I have no employees, what do I do? To calculate your maximum loan amount, you need to look at your 2019 IRS form 1040, Schedule C, line 31. It's very specific. So basically, you look for your net profit amount from last year. You calculate that by 12 months, and that gives you your monthly average payroll. You multiply that by 2.5, and then that will give you what your maximum loan amount is. So if you fall in this type of scenario, the documents that you may be asked to submit is your 2019 tax filings, your 2019 Form 1040 Schedule C, your 2019 1099 miscellaneous form, and you might also be asked about your 2019 bank statements or 2020 bank statements if you were not operating or not in existence in 2019, but you started your business in January. They might ask you for your 2020 bank statements. Next, please. The second scenario I often get is, well, I do have employees, but how in the world do I calculate the maximum payroll loan amount to put on here? It looks a little bit complicated, but if you do have employees and you're a small business, remember, if you have a payroll company, the payroll report is basically what you'll be needing because all the information is in there. But if you don't have that, you want to add your 2019 net profit amount, gross wages, tips paid to your employees, plus any pre-tax employee contributions for health insurance or any other fringe benefits. So if you provide paid vacation, paid leave, paid sick, make sure to put those calculations in there. You also want to add your 2019 employer health insurance retirement contributions and any state and local taxes that may be assessed. Once you add all that together, you will then calculate the average monthly amount by dividing that by 12 months. And then whatever that outcome is, multiplied by 2.5, and that is what your maximum loan amount would be. Now, documents that will probably be asked to submit will be your 2019 Form 1040 Schedule C, Form 941, or any payroll records, your state quarterly wage unemployment insurance tax reporting forms from each quarter in 2019. Again, a lot of this is already in your payroll reports. And also a payroll statement of similar documentation from the pay period that covered February 15, 2020, must be provided in order to establish that you were in operation on February 15, 2020. So those are the typical things that will be asked once you go to apply. And just the last few slides, I just want to go over again how to make this PPP loan forgivable. 75% of that loan needs to be utilized for payroll purposes. 25% of that loan needs to be utilized to pay for mortgage interest, rent, or any utilities. And if you stick to that formula, you'll get 100% of your loan forgiven. And last but certainly not least, on the next slide, you'll see 2 additional programs we do have. We have our SBA Debt Relief Program. In this program, the SBA will pay the principal, interest, and fees of current 7A, 504, and microloans for a period of 6 months. And the SBA will also pay principal, interest, and fees of new S7A, 504, or microloans issued prior to September 27th of this year. On the other side, we have our Express Bridge Loan. This allows small businesses who currently have a business relationship with an SBA Express lender to access up to $25,000 with less paperwork. Now, if the small business owner does this and they also apply for the EIDL loan, once you get your funding for the EIDL loan, it will pay off this loan here. So this is why we always say it's good to apply for as many programs as you qualify for, because one can help the other, and there's no penalty to do that. And at the end of the day, you can decide if you don't need all of those loans, you can decide which ones you want. You can let the SBA know that you don't need the others, and again, there's no penalty to do that either. The next slide is just the same important contact information that we had at the beginning. The following slide is our local contact information. You can stay in contact with us, sba.gov/South Florida, at SBA_South Florida for Twitter. We have our YouTube channel, and you can also email us any questions at southflorida_do@sba.gov. And that's it. And the last slide, you'll see my wonderful team. This is our South Florida team. And I have an office in Miami and Tampa and Fort Pierce. Just think it's important for everybody to see the people that are behind the computers, behind your emails, behind the phones, and behind these webinars. We are all here to help you. So, we wish you all to please be well and stay safe. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us or our resource partners. Thank you so much. And again, thank you, Commissioner, for this opportunity.
Mute myself. I keep forgetting. Thank you, Victoria. We appreciate that. I think maybe we'll stop sharing the screen and turn it over to Ray so he can also kind of show the next piece in the puzzle is if folks need have some personal Q&A about how they may need help or what kind of forms they have. And Ray, would you mind letting us know what's happening out there at FIU SBDC?
Sure. Well, I think it's always important to let everyone know, basically who we are. We're a network of over 1,000 offices nationwide. I work with the office in Miami. We're located on Brickell Avenue. And as you mentioned, we're part of FIU as well, because the office network is a product of the association with SBA and then the local university, along with the private sector. And our mission is basically to provide assistance to small businesses, not just during this unfortunate circumstance of the pandemic, but something that we have been doing ongoing very successfully in providing small businesses with assistance at different levels in the structure of your business, all kinds of support in the area, whether it be marketing, branding, access to capital, which is my particular specialty, web engineering, business planning, you name it. And of course, a very important part of that product basket is ongoing training in financial literacy. Because as you know, small businesses have a difficulty embracing the numbers, understanding their business from a financial perspective, and we do a lot in trying to help them understand how the bank looks at you, how to be bankable. I've done many guest speaking engagements throughout. I did a few recently in the Keys, and it's like I'm on a crusade. We're trying to help small businesses understand that yes, it's good to have a great passion about your business and what you do and the services you provide, but you can't forget the importance of understanding your business from a financial perspective and understanding very critically how the banks look at you as a borrower. So the quicker you learn that, the better. And you know, and that's part of what we do. Of late, we have been working from dawn to dusk, as you mentioned, Eileen, providing a lot of assistance to a lot of small businesses with the whole process, with the disaster loan as well as the PPP. We've had, you know, some good news. I mean, you know, Victoria is right. I mean, it's been incredible the way you have been right, the way the money has evaporated. But I mean, looking at those figures from the SBA, the volume's incredible, and we'll have our fingers crossed waiting for additional funding to come in. We are available to help you. We've done a lot in providing a better understanding for the small businesses of what they need to do, how do they need to approach things. And then we obviously embrace the opportunity of bringing them on board with the SBDC, which, by the way, it's got the best price in town, free. It's a free services that we provide. It's a price that you can't beat. We are made up of a team of over 16 consultants, very, very experienced people that provide a lot of value to help you in every aspect of your business. So for us, it's a great opportunity to continue the mission and to help all of you and be working closely with good people like yourselves. And Victoria, she's probably drinking a lot of coffee lately, I'm sure. Keeping up with everything, but we're available, and you know, we're here to help you out. And this is part of what we do and what we continue doing. And it's a great resource. You should take advantage of it, not just during these unfortunate times, but also moving forward. It's a very valuable service, and as I mentioned, it's got the best price in town. It's free. Okay, thank you.
Who knew we could have such great consulting for free? It's the silver lining of all that's going on. Okay, so now maybe we can turn to a couple of questions. I think, Rachel, are you going to manage Q&A here? We've got a bunch of folks that have already put some things in chat, and we can maybe unmute them. And I know some of you are in process, and Victoria and Ray can give you some advice about what to do next on those things.
So I see that Mayra Rocha asked a question, so if we could unmute her, and it might have been answered in the slide, but we'll just unmute you and you'll be able to address the panelists and the commissioner if you still have any other questions.
Myra, are you there? I can't hear her.
She's been unmuted.
Okay. Myra, if you would like to ask your question, if not, we'll just move on, and then you can write in the chat if you want to be unmuted again. The next question I see is from Esther. Esther Alonzo Luft. So if we could unmute Esther, and then she can ask her question.
Hear me?
Yeah, it's a little quiet, Esther, so speak up.
I'll be loud. You know I have a good voice. Okay.
Yeah, I know you have that ability.
So I applied for the EIDL through the SBA website on the first day, or actually probably before, because I think it was a pre-application. I received a confirmation number and then never received anything else again. And I know from a lot of my colleagues that they've shared that same experience. One individual received a notice from his bank that the terms had changed and he should reapply. So it's a little confusing as to what to do next, because on one hand, you don't want to just keep submitting applications and then generate some sort of, fraud alert. But what do we do? I mean, what happens next?
I think that's a wonderful question. And first, I have to say I love your birds. I have birds myself. I heard them in the background. When you applied for the application, did you submit the the hard copy application through the mail, or did you apply in the portal and did you get an application form?
On the portal,
Okay.
and I did receive a confirmation number and a notification on screen, which I took a screenshot of, saying that they would contact me with the next requirement.
Information to our disaster team. And
Oh, I lost you.
Oops, hello, can you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear the first portion of anything you said.
Okay, what I was saying is, if you do have a confirmation number, an application number, and a notification, I would send that to our disaster customer service team with an explanation of what you just mentioned, that you were one of the first to apply, yet you have not received any additional notification. I can give you their phone number and I can give you their email address. I do know if you call them, you're going to be on hold for many, many hours. And your email address, again, they might not respond right away. It might take them, 4 or 5 days to respond, but they will respond. I have been told, though, but if you call in the early morning, they start at 8 in the morning. If you call at 8 a.m., you should be able to get through to someone relatively sooner rather than later. So I can give you the disasters team's contact information. They're the only ones that have access to go into the system and see where your application is. Their phone number is 1-800-659-2955, 1-800-659-2955. You can also email them if you prefer, disastercustomerservice@sba.gov, disastercustomerservice@sba.gov.
Okay, and what are their office hours?
8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for not reapplying many times, because what happens if people do that on the other side, it tends to get a little bit more complicated because they might see it as somebody trying to commit fraud. So I'm glad you just applied once, and if you got that confirmation number, they should be able to find that in the system for you. Also, I want to say for everybody on the line, if you're waiting to hear back from SBA and you haven't received an email, make sure to check your junk file in your inbox and your spam file, because small business owners have told me that they've been waiting, and they actually found emails and communication from SBA in those files. So remember to check that too.
Great. Thank you so much, Esther, for that question, and Victoria for explaining it. The next person, which I think is Alice Horn. Alice, you will be unmuted and you can ask your question.
While she does that, Rachel, I did see a question pop up from Shirley in reference to Spanish information. We do have Spanish webinars Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 1. To get information on the next ones, I would go to sba.gov/South Florida, and you'll see the information. It'll probably be posted later today.
And also on that note, Shirley, we can send you the link to yesterday's webinar that our office did that was in Spanish. And so that'll be on YouTube probably this afternoon. I hate to overpromise for the team, but as soon as we have that up, we'll send you the link to that. And our Spanish language resource partner that does a lot of work in District 5 is Prospera. And so they can explain, they were also on that webinar to explain their services as well.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Eileen. I actually, my question's related to the previous question. I had the same experience with receiving the confirmation number and then nothing beyond that. I did call the 800 number twice. It took me, I was caller 1,555. It took me about 45 minutes to get through, so actually not too bad. And I was told that once I got that confirmation number, I was in the system and I should just stay tuned for the next step in the application. So I'm going to keep on calling. That's just I think that's the best practice, at least for me. But
Yes.
I guess my question is, you had mentioned that the EIDL funding was actually tapped out. Did I understand that correctly?
No, right now we're not accepting any new applications.
Oh,
if people
okay.
apply, if you received an application number, then you are in the system.
Okay.
And all of the applications are being reviewed on a first come, first served basis. So there's still funding available, but as loans get approved, we have less and less funding. So we had to stop accepting new applications.
Okay, so, but we're in the system, so that's good.
Exactly, yes. They're still in the process of reviewing the loans. What I do want to say, just to put everything into perspective for folks, earlier this week was the first batch of loan disbursements that were done for EIDL. So if you think back, EIDL started about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and earlier this week is when we did the first disbursement of funds. So that kind of gives you an idea that the disbursements are taking, 3-4 weeks, to be done. And I'm just sharing that just to give perspective. I have not been able to get a timeline from headquarters, but just myself, my own personal opinion, I'm thinking if the first batch was done earlier this week, and these are people that applied earlier in the process, it just gives you an idea that it is taking several weeks, like when I say several, 3 to 4 weeks or so, for an application to go through the system.
Okay, and I just want to say that the both of the ladies I spoke to were very lovely and very personable, and I just want to say thank you for that, because I called at the end of the day, so they must have been exhausted, and I really want to express my thanks for that human touch. I mean, they were telling little anecdotes, and they were it was nice to hear.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so glad. And thank you so much for sharing that with me. We do hear, we get everything, the good, the bad, the ugly. And when I get some good information, I think that's absolutely wonderful. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share that with us.
Sure.
Great, thank you so much. The next question is from Zobaida. So we're going to unmute you and you'll be able to ask your question.
I'm not hearing anything on my end.
Rachel, I think she's not on anymore.
Okay, so she might have dropped off. We will move on to the next question, which is from Belkis. So we can unmute and they can ask the question.
Hi, Belkis. I can't hear them either.
She's still being unmuted, so
Oh, I see.
let's see.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for providing us this information. We really, really needed this from you guys. Eileen, you guys are doing a great job. I have 2 questions. Number one, it's we have a small business. We have a salon in A Street, which you have helped us before, Eileen, and we're very thankful. But
I can hardly wait to get my hair cut by a trained professional
our
again.
clients are driving us crazy. You have no idea. One, I got a little good news yesterday from our bank, from Regions, that our application is already, and the system is already processing. My question is, we did not get a number from the SBA. Does that mean that we're there, or we need to apply again, or we're not getting the money? That's one of my questions.
So okay, so I'm not certain if we're talking about 1 loan or 2. If you received good information for the PPP, every bank is managing the PPP slightly different.
Okay.
So I don't know if when you apply for the PPP with Regions, if they provided you a loan number, an application number, reference number.
Yes.
Okay, good. So, and you got good news already from them, so you're in communication, so that's good. When you say that you did not get a loan number or application number, are you talking about EIDL? Did you apply for EIDL on the website?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So when you applied for EIDL, did you do it electronically through the portal, or did you submit a hard copy through the mail, through the U.S. mail?
We did it through the portal, yes.
Did you receive an email afterwards that saying thank you for the application? received?
You know what? Now that you mentioned, maybe it went to my junk mail. I never checked, that. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. But as up to now, we don't have
I would do
anything.
that, but if
Right.
I would, check your junk mail or your spam mail, see if it's in there. If it's not, then I would contact our disaster team and let them know the
Okay.
situation, see if they can find you in the system.
Okay, perfect.
I'm certain if you're at the computer, but I can tell you verbally what the number is. It's 1-800-65.
6
So
what?
it's 1-800-659
Uh-huh. 29
2955.
55. Perfect. Thank you. My second
You can
question
also,
is, I'm sorry.
Oh, one second. I also want to give you an email address for them in case
Okay.
you prefer to email them.
Yes.
It's disaster customer service at
Okay.
sba.gov.
Okay, perfect. My second question is, I'm getting all my hairstylists that they work on a 1099 asking me some of the questions for the PP loan that if they could do on their own. One of them said
Yes.
that they do not have a bank account business. They only have a checking account. They went to their bank and they said, no, you cannot apply for the PP because you do not have a business account, and you needed to have one in the beginning of the year for you to apply. Is there any bank providing any services so I could provide to my employees that they're in a 1099?
Yes. What I would do is I would go to sba.gov/paycheck protection /find.
Fund. Okay. And
So
they would.
I'll repeat it again. Yep.
Yeah, because you're breaking out a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's sba.gov/paycheck protection /find.
Find. Okay.
When they go there, they can put their zip code, and it'll give them a list of SBA banks and credit unions that are approved to manage the PPP program, so they can help them with that.
I wanted
Right.
And I don't know, we have a consultant on the line with us.
Yeah,
right?
because
I wanted,
some of the banks.
I wanted to chime in on a couple of points. Number one, just to as a segue to Victoria's comment about each bank is kind of a different world. They all have their own policies and procedures, and they underwrite some of these transactions differently. And it's surprising sometimes. I've seen smaller community banks actually flow a lot smoother than the larger institutions simply because of the volume of transactions. And remember, you got to remember that when this was first presented to the banks, and I'm putting on my banker's hat because I was a banker for so many years. These loans, they're being priced at 0.5%, 1%. The banks were, getting returns of 6.5%, 7% on their portfolio, so they had to digest that. Then the government came back and gave them some enticements to make it happen. Then one of the items that seems to be repetitive with banks is they'd like to see you bring in some sort of depository relation. That perhaps the young lady that asked a question about the depository account, what happens is that since these loans are perhaps lower yielding, et cetera, what they try to do is get some sort of a relationship rather than a transaction. That's why, a lot of banks expect you, let's say if you have a bank right now that you're dealing with that simply is not doing it for whatever internal decision they made on that regard, and you go to a bank that does offer the PPP, you may find yourself in a situation where they want you to establish a depository relationship. So, that's the reason why some of you are running into that. The other thing that I run into with some of my clients at SBDC is that we're able to help them through the whole approval process. And then recently, because of this impasse that we're experiencing with the PPP, because I do believe that we will get a second round, they got approved, but they weren't funded yet. So I guess you have to exercise patience. You got to also, this is a time to kind of bug your banker a little bit and say, okay, where am I? Because, there's a difference of being in a process of underwriting as opposed to have been approved and all of a sudden you got locked in and stopped because the funding ran out temporarily. So, you know, you got to keep these things in perspective. You know, another comment that I wanted to make in all of this terrible situation, and I do believe we will get, you know, through with this. You try to, you know, get lessons learned from this, and in terms of making always sure that you have your own internal disaster plan as you move forward into the future. You know, you've heard the saying, you know, save for a rainy day. And I know sometimes small businesses have the tendency of doing, you know, running paycheck by paycheck sometimes, and you know, that's not necessarily out of your choice. It's just simply the circumstance. But you gotta, you know, take time, like you know, step away from the day to day and dedicate, you know, 10 minutes to some strategic planning to prepare yourselves. You know, because today is the you know, pandemic. Tomorrow is a hurricane. So you should always have that mentality of creating in place some sort of disaster plan to prepare. The other thing, please, please, please pay attention to your numbers, your financials, making sure these financials are up to date. I'm sure those of you that had all of that in order, perhaps the process was a lot easier for you to execute. So you got to, you know, spend some time in trying to make sure that you get all your financials in play correctly and in compliance, and that way things will run a lot smoother. At the end of the day, you know, banks are always going to look at your repayment capability, and I think you got to keep that in your mind at all times.
And I just want to also add, Belkis, to your question
Yes.
about your employees that are 1099 employees.
Mhm.
As they're struggling to get through perhaps the small business stuff because they maybe aren't as structured, and I think this is common in a lot of hair salons that we've heard from, they are now eligible for unemployment insurance. And so
They've tried that.
I know they have, but they got to apply. The state is a disaster.
Yeah.
An absolute disaster. They're something like 750,000 applications behind. But nonetheless, they are going to get that money. And I have been, you know, as much of a stalker as I possibly can be in Tallahassee to tell them these benefits have to be retroactive. So at least get them to apply. And the state will eventually get caught up and get this money into people's hands.
Yeah, what some people don't understand about, I mean, some people do, some people don't. What happens with salon is that you make your money with your clients. No clients, no money.
No money.
You
Exactly.
cannot, I mean, there's so much little money you could actually save because you have the expensive of everything else on top of you. But if you're in our situation, got really affected March 1st.
Yeah.
People started hearing this. People are not going to get their haircut. People are not going to do their nails because people don't want them to touch their body. People don't want to get microblading. They don't want to get Botox done. So this type of business, I think, is really bad affected. Even more restaurants. Restaurants are still opening. You can still do deliveries, but you cannot on salon. And one thing I do not see, having my mother having this business established over 40 years. This is not just a salon that just opened recently, and then I took over 5 years now because she's already retired. It's been really bad because you cannot do any service. Even if you give me the authority now to open my salon, how would I stay away 6 feet with my clients?
No.
How would I treat them?
Yeah.
And then there's no help. There's no 1099 that I could now do, you know, that my employees are asking me. There's no unemployment money. There's people that haven't gotten their money, their $1,200 deposit into their account. I mean, I think this type of business is hurting drastically.
Thank you.
I am afraid, honestly, to open my business if this. What's the safety? How could I do this? Where could I buy the shields? Where could I buy the gloves? How could I protect the clients that come in? Because it's not an office that you're sitting there with a computer and you're just taking notes and you're getting paid, you know, directly into your deposit, into your account. Or you go into an office that you could stay 6 feet apart. You could go into a restaurant, order meals, but this, how do you work this type of business? Can anyone answer me that question?
Well, I think that is slowly but surely going to get answered. And part of the way it's going to get answered for not just your business, but for others, like restaurants where people want to sit in, or bars, right, where people are in close proximity. A lot of that is going to come from the next generation of testing, right? So when we really do have widespread testing and it's just your pinprick, and the county is testing a number of those systems actually as we speak right now, so that people can have confidence that they are COVID negative, or they have the antibodies, and so that will change. It's not going to happen as fast as a lot of us would like. And we just, you know, as much as, you know, the state has not gotten unemployment money back and the federal government is still trying to get us the $1,200 checks, it's the first time all these governments have tried to go through anything like this. So you're right, Belkis, it is taking longer. Okay, maybe we'll eventually have to do another webinar on stuff like that. Rachel, do we have any more questions?
Yep, we have a few more questions. We're gonna try to get a few more answered, but if we don't get to your question, please send it to district5@miamidade.gov, and we'll either answer it from our office or we'll connect you with one of our community partners who can answer and explain more, just because we want to be respectful of everybody's time today. So the next question is from Catherine, and she has been unmuted.
We can't hear you very well, Catherine.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah.
Hi. So I have not applied yet, so I'm getting all my paperwork and everything ready for the EIDL loan when it reopens. But I'm wondering what do they count as a fixed debt? Can it be a fixed loan from a non-SBA loan, or like a car payment for a corporate vehicle?
So Karen, we had a little trouble hearing you, but I see that you wrote your question in the chat, so I'm just gonna read it from there, and then we'll have the panelists answer. But she asked, I would appreciate clarification on what counts as fixed debt under the EIDL loan and which funds can be used and forgiven. Does it include non-SBA loan debt, credit cards, car payments? Thank you. I think that I caught a little bits and pieces of what you were saying, so I think that aligns.
Thank you so much. And for what program was that? For the EIDL program?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the EIDL program, you can pay fixed debts. You can actually use it for payroll as well. You can utilize it to pay any accounts payable that you have. Basically, it's any business-related cost. I don't know, Ray, if you would like to chime in with additional information.
Well, I mean, I guess, fixed cost within the program as well without is typically your overhead expenses, which include these fixed payments, such as you mentioned, revolving lines of credit, installment credits, and that type of thing. Those are your fixed expenses. From an analyst point of view, is the definition.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. And then next, Dan Vasquez, if he could be unmuted, he had a few questions.
I still see him on mute.
There's a little lag in the unmuting.
Unmuting. It's a new
Yeah,
No meeting allowed.
there's a little bit of a lag. This is Leanne. I'm trying.
No, it's okay.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dan?
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. Small business owner here, owns an event company with no travel in today's world and corporate traveling. There's no business since the Super Bowl. So, and thank God we had a Super Bowl. Otherwise, I'd be in a different position today. That said, I don't foresee any events happening until October, November. talking to some of the major planning companies that work with corporations that bring them to South Florida. Obviously, the PPP program is I just got an email while I was on this call right now saying that they are out of funds. I knew that already. But if we process this application the day it opened, why wouldn't we be able to get the funds when we did it the first day?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your question. Have you been in communication with the lender that you utilize to process that particular application for the PPP? Because they would be able to tell you, you know, what occurred with that particular application. So, for example, I don't know if they needed more information.
Chase, by the way, and Chase, you can't call the 800 number. You can't go to a banker. They tell you clearly, nobody can give you information about this loan except through us via an email or we'll call you. That's it.
Yeah, if I may chime in, I mean, one of the challenges with the banks is basically that this program obviously is a special program that's being funded, you know, by the government, and perhaps some of the folks that you talk to in the branch, maybe retail bankers that they probably have been given a mandate just to restrict their response and refer to some sort of customer service number. Unfortunately, you know, some of the bigger banks seem to be doing that rather too frequently. I've seen better experiences with smaller banks that, because of their size, they're typically much more accessible. You know, if you compare the models of a big institution with a small institution, is simply that their value-added proposition is always that the accessibility, the quick response, that type of thing. And the other thing is, you mentioned, you know, why couldn't they respond immediately? You got to remember that at the end of the day, banks have to underwrite the credit. Regardless, they have to process, you know, all the required documents and analyze the actual credit. And then on top of that, you throw in this incredible, overwhelming tidal wave of applications. So it makes the task, you know, much more difficult. Unfortunately, we all feel for you, and, you know, as empathetic as we can be. And you know, it's every bank seems to be an island. You know, in some cases, some banks have come in late to the game on this. Others have jumped on it with an opportunity. I'm not going to do any free advertising for any institutions without their permission, but you know, it's just sometimes it's a luck of the draw. You know, and
right.
That you're dealing with.
However,
yeah.
You know, this program was mandated that you have to have a relationship with the bank prior to February. So how are you going to get a small relationship, I mean, a new relationship, and try to process this loan? You can't. That said, you know, the government is supposed to, you know, unfortunately, small businesses have to go through a loan process, and the large corporations don't. They just get, and some of these people just get bailed out. When we have to go through this process, when we're the lifeblood of this country, and why do we have to go through this? It's absurd. I submitted my application on April 5th. I understand there's thousands of people that are trying to do the same thing. There's also issues when this program rolled out that the banks weren't ready. And at the end of the day, when we submit our applications immediately when the portal opens, we're 2 weeks away back from that date of submitting that application. We have nothing but just an email today saying that the money ran out. And some publications say if you submitted your application already, they already know that that money is going to be earmarked for you, so then you will get the loan. Well, that's not the case.
I totally empathize with your comments, trust me. I mean, and we're on your team. We're trying our best from our end to give you, you know, all the support that we can within our reach. And, you know, fortunately, the banks are banks, and they have their own, you know, policies and procedures. But I do agree that you know, the rollout was a bit late, and this is a, you know, real serious situation. and everyone is trying their best.
Excuse me, just coupled with that, other people said about the unemployment. People can't get unemployment. That's ridiculous. I helped my nephew go to the through his unemployment in California, was able to do it in less than 10 minutes. So, you know, then there's the question about retroactive. I appreciate everybody trying to do this. I've reached out to senators. I've reached out to everybody possible. But then the stimulus payment doesn't come, because the fact is that the stimulus payment is having problems as well. The stimulus payment says your status is we cannot determine if you're eligible. Everybody's getting that notice. So you've got unemployment you can't get. You got stimulus money you can't get. You can't get money from any SBA, any kind of program. So what do people do?
So I feel your pain. My sister has been in the queue since day one for PPP and for EIDL, and so we also continue to wait. All I can tell you is on unemployment, everybody's got to write the governor. He has complete control over making these benefits retroactive. And he continues to say he doesn't have the power, but Charlie Crist did it when he was governor in a different emergency. So you have got to, I can tell you that our local representatives and state representatives and state senators, and as commissioners, have been pushing the governor to make that change. So we just need to make it very clear that the state of Florida needs to get its act together, get some checks out, and make those benefits retroactive, because it's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. The second thing that on the PPP program, I get mad as can be, or the EIDL program, I'm like, we don't have it. But 2 weeks ago, they pushed out $2 trillion. And is it really possible to get all that processed in 2 weeks? And some banks did a better job than others. And my guess is they are all ramping up, and it totally sucks while we're in it. What I would suggest for some of you, particularly Dan in the events business, I have already written the entire South Florida congressional delegation. Donna Shalala, Debbie Merkelsel-Power, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, Mario Diaz-Balart, Senator Rubio, Senator Scott, because there are a lot of businesses that are unique to the South Florida economy that are not going to be up and running by June 30th, which is when the PPP expires. And the fact that many of us are still in queue for PPP makes that June 30th date, in my opinion, humble opinion, untenable. So I have been really pushing for an extension. I've actually said, why don't you let small businesses have up till December 31st to use that on payroll, so we can ramp up more slowly, which is what's going to happen to the events business, right? Because they're going to be much smaller. So definitely write to your congressional delegation asking for PPP to have a longer window for you to use that 2.5 times payroll. And you're right, it's been problematic. But all we can do now is, for anybody that hasn't applied, make sure you're talking to people like Ray to figure out what documents you need. So when those windows to apply open again, we're ready to do that. Rachel, we got anybody else?
Yep, we have a few questions, Commissioner, about our District 5 mom and pop application. So I don't know if you want to say something about that, and then.
Sure. So the county's mom and pop, we have a little mom and pop business program that sometimes can give $500 or $1,000 to small businesses by district. As with a lot of things, as Dan pointed out with government, it was a very paper dependent process. And so we are working with the Office of Management and Budget to try to make that easier for folks to submit and verify their details electronically. So Rachel's working on a plan for that, to see if we can get that process up and running anytime soon. I also have been asking, recognizing that the county's budget is going to be really, I mean, it's already really struggling from a revenue perspective. if we could find a way, if the mayor could allow us to increase the pool of money. So we can't get you the big grants that the SBA could do, but we may be able to get people a couple $100 here and there, $1,000 to try to keep them in survival mode while we wait for the rest of these other government benefits from bigger governments to get out. So just shoot her off with an email if you want more information about that. District 5, the number 5, at miamidade.gov.
And then I think we're gonna head into our last question. So like we said before, if we didn't get to your question, please email us and we'll either answer or we'll connect you to one of our community partners that can help you further. So our last question is from Maria from Ponte Vecchio, one of our Greener Correlate businesses. So Maria, you should be unmuted and you can address the panelists and the commissioner.
Hi, Maria.
Hope you get to hear me clearly.
Yeah, not bad.
Okay, great. Well, I got stuck in Panama, so I'm currently out of the country.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, the airport got closed when I was here, so I'm here. Yeah, so well, we're trying to handle this all from all over the world. My business is a family owned, as you know. My dad got stuck in Aruba because Venezuelan airport got closed. I'm here, and my brother is in Miami. So,
Oh my
in
God.
order to do all this, we tried to apply very fast, and we did apply on the federal loan. Okay, it's called I think it's called COVID-19 Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Okay, we applied on the portal and we submitted all the information they request. We have our application number, but after that we heard about the PPP. Okay, but our bank is Ocean Bank and it's not on the loan lender. So I was wondering, what can we do in order to get this? Because the restaurant is currently closed already for a month, and our employees are not getting any payment because if we are not open, we don't have money, and we don't have money. Unfortunately, we can pay them because we have been trying really hard to stay in business, as you know. So I'm wondering, what can we do, or what are your suggestions on this matter?
Okay, so thank you so much for the question. In reference to the PPP, if Ocean Bank is not an approved lender, you can go to sba.gov/paycheck protection/find. And if you put your zip code in there, you'll get a list of SBA approved lenders that you can go to apply for the PPP. But remember, right now, lenders are not accepting any new applications for the PPP. Now, if we do get additional appropriations from Congress, the program itself will open up again and you will be able to apply. So what I suggest between now and then, go to sba.gov/disaster under funding programs, look for the PPP, and it'll give you information on what you're going to need to apply. So you can take this time to get all your documents ready to apply for the program, and once it opens up, you can be one of the first individuals that apply.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ray, do you have any insights around Ocean Bank?
Well, actually, I trained a lot of the executives there for over 6 years. Well, I've been doing a lot of teaching. But I mean, is she saying that they're not it surprises me, they're not a preferred lender for the SBA? Was that what she stated?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Who did she talk to? I mean, I'm always afraid that, again, what's happened in this day and age now, a lot of the branches have, not to put down retail bankers, but what happens is sometimes they may not be up to speed with the area on the lending side. So perhaps you should insist to talk to the branch manager. Which branch do you go to? Could you tell me? Which branch?
I don't know. Our banker is Armando Flores, and he's in Brickell.
Oh, he's in Brickell. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I know. Actually, I know the building. Right. Yeah. It's right across from Helm Bank.
Right.
I know
Great,
my
this is
area.
Victoria. I just asked my lending specialist on my staff. She says Ocean Bank is indeed
There you go.
an SBA lender. We have worked with them for many, many years. So I'm not certain, you know, to the caller on the line, if the gentleman you spoke with, I'm assuming he knows this, but perhaps what he mentioned was that they're not accepting applications, which are two different things.
Yeah,
So they are an SBA, right? They are an SBA approved lender. You can absolutely apply for the PPP with them. But right now, they're probably not accepting new applications. But once we get additional funding from Congress, if that comes through, then the program will open up and you can apply with them. But they are absolutely an SBA approved lender.
That's what I.
Okay, I will definitely talk to them again. I'm sorry about that. Probably I misunderstood
So
that.
Maria, talk to the branch manager, Maria. Go back in there, speak to the branch manager, because like I mentioned, sometimes the people on the platform, they're more, let's say, retail driven on the depository side, and you know, they're not up to speed with unfortunately, that's just the way it is. So, you know, insist with the branch manager and find out. But, you know, adding to what Victoria's saying, it's probably the fact that they're no longer accepting, you know, applications. Like I said, I've had clients. Oh, by the way, I don't know the specifics, but I'm getting messages that the rumblings are saying that they're coming down, getting close to some sort of a deal on both the PP and the EIDL. So don't hold me to it, because
Okay, I know,
Well,
I know.
what I do want to share with what I do want to share with the commissioner and everyone on staff, from the time that we started our call today to right now, I'd say maybe about 5-10 minutes ago, we've gotten new statistics for the state of Florida on the PPP. So if you remember, originally we said we were at 12 billion. Right now, and 50,000 loans that have been approved. Right now, during this time frame that we've been on this call, the numbers have risen. So now we went from 50,000 to 88,997 approved loans. We went from 12 billion to $17.86 billion. And this was just within this hour that we've been on the call today. So, you know, the funds are going out. They're being dispersed, absolutely. And this is just in the state of Florida. According to these statistics, we still rank number 3 in the nation. Number 1 in our SBA region, which encompasses the 9 southeasternmost states in the nation. We're number 1 in that area. So the funding is going out. The funding is definitely going out. I mean, for those individuals, such as the gentleman, I believe his name was Dan, that was having issues with his bank. You know, you can absolutely continue to work with your bank. If they are unwilling to connect with you, and this program opens up again, you might consider going to a smaller bank. Sometimes the smaller banks, from what we've seen, they're able to move much more quicker than those larger banks. So if you're interested in taking that route, you do have that option. There's no penalty to do that. There's no cost to do that. And you can find these smaller banks in your community by going to sba.gov/paycheck protection/find. You just put in your zip code and you'll get a list of SBA approved bankers in your area. But I did want to share that information, just puts things into perspective on how quickly things are moving, actually. And I suspect within the next few days, probably by Monday or Wednesday of next week, we'll have additional statistics.
Maybe we'll surpass Texas before you know it, the state of Florida. We're already way ahead of New York. We're way ahead of New York. New York was at number 5 on that list. But, you know, adding to Victoria's comment, this is a perfect time also for you guys to start evaluating your banking relationship. And prior to this situation, I would always tell that to a lot of clients, that sometimes they have this banking relationship with a bank that has no interest in their particular industry, and you're wasting your time. You need to evaluate if they're amenable to lending to your industry, to be able to get the support that you need. So yeah, now is the time to evaluate. There are a lot of community banks that are stepping up to the plate simply because they see it as an opportunity to grow their client base. So, perhaps they're hungrier than the larger institutions. I mean, not to pick on anyone, but I mean, it's just what we're all seeing, right, Victoria? It's not just you, but it seems to be the situation right now. So evaluate. those of you that, get like a quick response at a branch, someone that doesn't, just wants to, shake it off, insist and talk to the branch manager. That's why they're there. And you want to find out what's going on, and also make sure to understand the difference between having your application already underwritten and approved and simply held back because they're waiting for the next wave. And the other one is that your application is in the underwriting process, right? So
Thank you.
Things in perspective.
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you so much.
Well, I guess we're probably out, right, Rachel? I just want to mention, yesterday we did a similar call like this for small business owners that were more comfortable speaking Spanish, and with a lot of questions. And Victoria, Risa got her EIDL loan approved today. So, even though the word is that the funds have run out, it does look like people, it won't be perfect, I'm sure, but it looks like people that have been in process, that money, is going through the approval process and is still coming out. So one small success story, Victoria. So thanks for helping us with that. And Rachel, you want to close it out with any details or information for folks to get a hold of us?
Yep. So our office email and phone number is in the chat. We'll put it in. I think the phone number, we just need to add that in. Thank you both to Victoria and Ray, and for all of you for joining. We hope this was helpful. And if you didn't get your questions answered, please reach out to us, and we will connect you or we will answer it ourselves. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Be safe out there.
By the way, Eileen, you got a great staff, I'm telling you.
I do.
That Rachel's cooking, let me tell you.
I know. I'm lucky.
All right. All the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.